Good afternoon, everyone. Today we're going over the serial monitor's read function and the buffer. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right in. So here we have the documentation of the read function, more specifically the serial read. The serial read function takes no parameters, but the most important one that we want to focus on right now is what it returns. It returns the first byte of incoming serial data, so only one byte at a time. So let's go ahead and move on to see how the buffer works. The buffer, imagine the buffer as a stack with empty slots in it. So now let's say we want to go ahead and submit a 3-character string. So CSK. We go ahead and hit enter on the Arduino input and it'll give us this in the buffer. So we have C reserving a slot, S reserving a slot, K reserving a slot, and then we have this weird character, a \n, which is known as the new line. So right now we have 4 in the buffer. Now when we call serial read, it'll look at the buffer and see if something's there. And if there is something, it'll return it. Only one byte at a time. Remember that important detail. So it sees that there's a C in the buffer, so it'll go ahead and return the respective ASCII code for it, the American Standard Code for Information Interchange, and capital C is 67 in that table. And we do the same thing with all the rest of the items in the buffer. So the next time we call serial read, I'll check to see what's in the buffer. We have an uppercase S. It'll return 83. We move on to K. It'll return 75. And then we move on to the line feed, and when we call serial read, we'll get the code for it, so 10. And now, at the empty slot, when we call serial read, there'll be nothing in there for it to get, so it'll just hang and wait for input. Then when we enter new stuff again, it'll see something's in there, and it'll return that code. So the problem here is, let's say I want the users to submit one character only. For example, the number 1. Here we submit 1 into the buffer. We call serial read. Serial read looks into the buffer and it sees that we have something in there. So it'll return its respective code. And then the next time we call serial read, it sees the new line character. So let's say they enter 2 later. 2 will be here, but the serial read will be waiting at the new line. And if we don't deal with that properly, then we'll run into an issue because you're not expecting a new line. So the solution to this problem is we repeat the same steps. So here we call serial read, it looks into the buffer, and it returns the respective code. And then we're going to go ahead and call serial read again, but this time we're going to do nothing with it. So it'll see that there's the new line character, it'll get it back, it'll discard it, and the next time we call serial read, there'll be nothing in there, so it'll wait for the input. And that's basically the logic of how you want to deal with buffers, and how buffers work in general. And yeah, so let's go ahead and pull up an example right now. Let's see if I can find it. Right over there. So here we have a simple program for the Arduino. It begins the serial and prints out enter your input, so it could show up the serial monitor here. Then in the loop, it waits until the serial is available. And then it calls the serial read function and stores it in the result variable. And it tells us what we got. So now if we were to run it, we go ahead and see here that if we enter any character, so let's say 1, we receive 49, and then we receive another character, even though we only put 1 in. This 10 is the new line character. So let's see, if you want to circumvent this, we can go ahead and just do another serial read. So we're going to go ahead and wait until the serial is available and do a serial read. This one will clear out new line. So now if you were to go ahead and restart the simulation, and now let's say we enter a character, we only get 1 input. However, there's an issue with this. See how we're calling serial read and not bothering to check? What is it? So now if we enter 3, we still get the... Let's see, my bad. If we enter 2. Huh. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's see how the buffer works. Okay, there it is. So I think I messed up the alignment on the buffer. We see how we have that and 10. Because right now this is throwing it out of whack because it's clearing out anything, not just only the new line. What we want to do is throw in a check. So while, not while, my bad. We're gonna go ahead and do. Let's go ahead and do a while here. Let's go ahead and make a new variable called clear. And we're gonna go ahead and clear equals this. And we're gonna do it while the clear does not equal 10. So now it's gonna keep looping through the read until it's 10. If we run it again, we can put in numbers, and if we put in more than one, it's gonna clear out the buffer every time. So it's gonna loop through the buffer entirely until it hits a 10. And now it only accepts one character. Knowing what we know now, we can go ahead and let's see if I have it. Yeah. We can make a function that uses this system, the buffer system, to our advantage. So let's go ahead and make a function that gets the string. So if I want to type in Cool Sonic Kirby, it'll return this whole thing instead of just one character at a time. So first things first, we can go ahead and clear out all this. And here's the function that I already written beforehand. We pass in a buffer for the character array, and we declare a size and the destination of the serial read. So for example here, let's go ahead and when we type in Cool Sonic Kirby here, it'll read the buffer. It'll see that C is first. If the destination of the buffer or the read is not a new line, it's going to put it in the array that we passed in the buffer. And then else, it's going to set the last character in it to be a null terminated character and increase the size. While it does not encounter a new line feed in the buffer. And it'll keep going through this through each character. Just keep going through here until it hits the last character, and then after that there's a new line over here, and that's when it'll stop. So now if we go ahead and call the getString function here, let's go ahead and stop all this. We'll make a buffer with the 100, so we only accept 100 characters. Let's go ahead and get the string. String, when you put in the buffer, and then we just want to print out. We're going to print out the string over here. Let's go ahead and print out the buffer. Now when you run it, we can type in whatever we want. And we get our entire string, not just one character. So this is how you can manipulate with the buffer of the serial and do other stuff with it. And then using other functions like I think in the standard library, let's see. stdlib.h. We can do stuff like a toy. So ASCII to integer, and we could take in strings like this and convert them to proper numbers and stuff. But yeah, you can put in names. And by the way, this 0 is the line terminator, so it's like this, but for specifically specifying that this is the end of the string. And yeah, that's how you can manipulate with the buffer. Pretty cool stuff, honestly. That's about it for this presentation that I want to do. Thank you guys for watching and have a nice day.